All right, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, we will get started shortly. I see you guys are trickling in now, so we'll go about 1 minute past the hour. Hello, and welcome to today's Digital Branding Institute webinar, using content marketing to build your digital brand, even if you have no budget or no resources. This webinar is brought to you by Digital Branding University. It's where you build an attractive digital brand that attracts more customers, clients, and leads. My name is Jante Delane, and I am the founder and executive director for Digital Branding Institute. I'm also the senior digital brand manager for the University of Southern California. I'm a national keynote speaker, blogger, podcaster, and self-proclaimed digital branding evangelist. And I am also your presenter for today. Now, a couple house rules before we get started. You can interact with me at any time. You can ask questions. Feel free to type those questions into the Q&A box and go ahead and click send. If you are having trouble, whether it be connectivity issues or something like that, there could be some things we can help you out with. So feel free to go ahead and type in some of the issues that you are experiencing in that Q&A box. I also ask you to join the conversation. Be sure to post on social media and use the hashtag DBI University. And just to let you know a little bit more about Digital Branding Institute, we guide you through the overwhelming process of building your digital brand. And we do this through training and education, events and workshops, and we also do consulting for individuals and organizations, both large and small. Our regional digital branding masterclass guides attendees through the digital branding process and have them walk away with a great digital brand to help boost or start their business. We also have the Digital Branding Summit, which is our annual virtual summit, which is laser focused on digital branding for specific industries and occupations. All right, now that we got all of that stuff out of the way, I'll go ahead and jump right into the presentation. So when I'm not working to evangelize digital branding through the Digital Branding Institute, I, of course, am wearing many different hats. One as the digital brand manager for USC, the other as a consultant, helping individuals and organizations to build their digital brand. And so I know what it takes to build a digital brand, both from an individual and an organizational perspective. And what's interesting is that they both try to emulate one another. So you'll have big brands that are trying to portray themselves as small. And then you'll have individuals that try to portray themselves as big brands. But what's fascinating is that whether you have a bootstrap budget or you have a $1 billion budget, your digital brand can still be the same, no matter who you are. And so, no matter what you offer, your digital brand is going to be referenced before someone buys from you, before a partner works with you, or even before you close a particular deal. And so the bottom line is that your target audience will review your digital footprint before considering any offerings. So what does your digital brand look like? Now, if you are perplexed by this question, then you are definitely in the right place. And so I'm going to focus on how to use content marketing to build and develop your digital identity. I'm going to talk about how to use it to gain more visibility and how to leverage that content to increase your credibility within your industry or occupation. Then I'm also going to provide you with the tools that we use that are either free, um, tools that are nominal in cost, and so on. So I'll give you all that information, all those tools, toward the end of this webinar as a special gift for staying on. Now, you might not have the budget to produce that blockbuster content like these large organizations or brands, but you can certainly create something special to enhance your digital brand. It doesn't really take very many resources to do that. So you should understand how content marketing affects your digital brand. So I'll take it a little bit deeper and dive into the 3 tenets of digital branding. So for your identity, you must your content must convey your personality really more than ever before. So the goal is to tell your story and engage with people who you are familiar with in a meaningful way. And when you have this consistent content, it allows your audience to build a memory structure around who you are and, of course, what you have to offer. Now, when you consider your visibility, your content represents not only who you are, but it also helps you target your audience effectively. So, for example, in the Facebook news feed, they recently had an algorithm change where essentially your visibility is affected by the amount of promotional messages that are being posted on your account. So essentially, Facebook is inhibiting, promotional or salesy types of messages from being displayed on users' news feeds. And with your credibility, as you post personal stories about your brand, your credibility naturally is going to increase, right? Because users will begin to know, like, and trust your brand. And so overall, you should utilize content marketing to help build your digital identity, visibility, and your credibility. Now, before I go any further, I want to explain the differences between content marketing and digital branding. I understand that some of you may be familiar with content marketing. That's a popular buzzword. But digital branding, you guys may be a little confused on what exactly that is. So I'm going to just give you some of the key differences. So content marketing essentially reinforces your value proposition. And digital branding is your value proposition. And with content marketing, it considers the user journey, right, at every stage of their purchasing decision, providing content when they are aware of your brand, when they're considering your brand, and when they're in the trial phase, essentially, of your brand, of purchasing your brand. Now, digital branding considers the position in which you're ranked on a short list with competitors during each phase of that user journey. So keep in mind, you can create content at every phase of the user journey to sort of inform your buyer, but you also have to understand that your buyer also is considering others. They're considering your competition. So where do you fall in that short list, right? So your digital brand helps to keep you at the top of that short list. And then when content marketing, it also it also is used to be a successful way to convert your audience. And really the keys to success with the content marketing is how well does your audience know you, right? And so you're able to create content to get them to know you a little better. But the key to success for digital branding is really your audience's perception and understanding of you, and digital branding also will allow you to really overlay, or augment what you have, or the content that you already have put out there, to again move those people along. So those are some of the key differences between digital branding and content marketing. If you want to discuss this further, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask any questions that you guys may have. Um, but ultimately, I really want to drive this home by saying that content strategy really maps out, who your audience is, of course, what problems that your offer is going to solve for them, and if you are going to consistently deliver content that they want to read and share, right? So again, it's a very altruistic type of view, right? You want to give as much as you can, and continue to create content for that best serves your target audience. Digital branding is somewhat selfish, and I say that because when you focus on digital branding strategy, it maps out what your identity is. So you're thinking about you and your identity within the digital space, where you can be found online, obviously your visibility, and then again, what credibility you have in the market. So you have to consider you first when establishing your digital brand presence, and then when you're creating content, you have to think of your target audience first. So that will kind of give you a good example of the differences between content marketing and digital branding. So with your identity, the goal is to find artifacts that are going to obviously tell, your story, and you want to make sure that story engages people in a meaningful way. You want to also make sure that your content is consistent with regard to the distribution, with regard to the appearance, the size, scope, color, feel, etc. Right, and obviously consistency allows your audience to build that memory structure around who you are and what value that you have to offer. And essentially, this memory structure is the identity of your business or organization. Now, I talked about how to establish a digital brand voice in my last webinar. And I want to make sure I drive this point home because it is so important, especially when you're considering, using your digital brand voice to drive your content. And when you're doing that, you have to consider these three things. You have to consider your organization, of course, what is your core values, your mission statement. This could be a personal mantra and so on. And of course, what you're offering, what's your unique value proposition, what are the benefits that your business, product, or service has, and your audience, right? Of course, really understanding who you're talking to here, right? And you establish, your digital brand voice using these three things, and then you use that to help drive your content marketing strategy going forward. So now let's shift gears a little bit. Now, when you think about a record label responsible for developing iconic voices, you absolutely must consider Motown. Now, Berry Gordy founded Motown in 1959 when race relations in America were at a pivotal point. You had white teens that were going crazy for rhythm and blues music produced by black artists. But because of this, Motown became a success, and they produced groundbreaking artists. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with some of the artists: Temptations, Smokey Robinson, Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder. It goes on and on and on and on. But simply put, the voices of these artists really made people feel good, right? It's like baby making music. It really made people feel good, right? So when you think about it in the context of creating content and building this digital brand voice, you want to ask yourself, how can you establish a brand voice that makes people feel as good as they do when listening to some Motown classics? So, to establish a brand voice for any business or organization, you obviously must consider your audience, your offering, and of course your organization. And so, in Motown's case, their audience were, consumers that have never heard that type of music. Their offering was something obviously that the audience loved, and the organization was, really helped to establish these Hall of Fame artists. And so, you know, when you're focusing on your organization's purpose, you want to make sure that you understand, who they are, what their lifestyle is like, what their challenges are, their needs, their fears and beliefs. And the more you know about your audience, the easier it is to align your digital your brand voice. And of course, again, your offerings. I talked about this. What problems are you solving? 'Cause at the end of the day, that's the game, and you're creating content to make sure that you are helping to solve some problem of or challenge of your target audience. And so again, you want to make sure that those three things are essentially aligned, and that's really how you're able to create that platinum content. And so just to give you a quick action plan on how you're able to do that, to create that platinum content, you want to focus on three things: your objective, your promise, and your personality. So with objective, you got to figure out, how are you going to deliver your message in a unique way, right? There's so much content out there. How can you be different? How can you, essentially arise above the noise, as they say? And of course, how are you going to be transparent? Transparency is key. I mean, it's in the political climate, it's in the business market. Transparency. People want to know what goes into some of the products that they purchase. They want to know the lifestyle and the inner workings of a business, of the CEO or whoever's the head of the company, and so on. And then you also want to focus on your promise, right? And that promise is, after you've engaged with your audience, how are you going to express that promise of helping them, of helping to alleviate some of their challenges, and really that you mean business when it comes to helping them get results. So you're not there just to be there to necessarily entertain them, but you also are there to position yourself as that authority that would help them get the results in which they're looking. And then you have your personality. And I consider the personality the window to the soul of your brand. So when people engage with your digital brand, what impression will they walk away with? Do they think that you're not putting enough resources into your digital brand because your website is outdated? Is it because you have a lack of presence in social media? Is it because when they Google search your name, nothing really comes up, or something that could be haunting you from 10 years ago comes up? Are they going to find more information about your bankruptcy or your business, right? So these are all the things that you have to consider when creating, your digital brand, and uh, and to really, again, to rise above that noise, you have to be, you have to have some personality, right? And you have to figure out if you want to be, seen as full of life or laid back. You have to figure out what you want to do there. So to express the true energy of your brand, you ultimately want to deliver, what your audience can expect of you. Now, there are four components that make up your digital brand voice, and I want to go in a little deeper because I think when you talk about content marketing, brand voice is often the last thing thought about. And so I want to go a little deeper into this. So here essentially are the four components that make up your brand voice. So you have your character, which essentially is the set of human characteristics that are attributed to any brand's voice. The purpose is really your ownable point of view that delivers that genuine value to customers. The language is the body of words or phrases and terms that your business or organization uses to describe the purpose, or if you want to reference a particular product. And then your tone is, of course, not what you say, but how you say it, right? So this should encompass not only the words that you choose, but the order, and of course, rhythm and pace. And so I'll give you an example. As I mentioned earlier, I wear many different hats, one of them being the Senior Digital Brand Manager for the University of Southern California. And so we have essentially outlined our digital brand voice along this quadrant. And when it comes to our character, we want to make sure that we are engaging online, and particularly through social media, because we want to have our content on social media be different than the content that's on our website or on any of our print collateral and things like that, right? So we want to make sure that we utilize this medium to be engaging. So we ask our target audience to pose questions. We make sure that we respond to those questions within 24 hours. And we feel like it's another way to really engage with our target audience. And I think you guys can obviously consider that when building or enhancing your social media voice as well. And then we want to make sure that our purpose is to be open. As I mentioned earlier, people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. The more that your target audience understands the inner workings of your business or organization, the more affinity they have for your organization. And so for us, we want to make sure that we demonstrate what it's like, to live and to learn on the campus of USC. So we want to make sure that our campus is completely open. So you can go to our social channels in particular and get an instant snapshot of, what's going on campus, and everything that's going on within the area around. And then you have your language. We want to make sure that we're obviously purposeful and we provide that guidance, for particularly for the admissions department, and even financial aid. It's very difficult for it's a difficult time for our target audience when it comes to choosing a college and going through financial aid process and so on. So we want to make sure that the language that we put on our social media in particular is one that is purposeful and that conveys that we are here to provide guidance during this process. And our tone, we want it to be authentic and very conversational. Right. So this particular brand, USC is traditionally brick and mortar, buttoned up type of brand. I want to open up the campus a little bit and have more of an authentic tone, conversational tone that's different from the content and the tone that's presented on our websites and our print collateral. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is by having actual students take over some of our social media handles. And this really helps to establish that authenticity. Our prospective audience is able to converse with our current students, and that helps to enhance our authenticity. And we also believe that content is obviously king. Now, one of the things that we're able to do is provide this content through social media in particular, and make sure that we pretty much use an image for everything, which means that we understand people aren't reading things as much anymore. So people are taking in these images and then acting upon what they're seeing. So, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, in some of these cases, it could be worth 140 characters as an example. But slapping those characters on an image is a great way to really convey your brand messaging and move people to action. Now, our goal with the admissions department and financial aid at USC is really to increase the efficacy of our communication. So we encourage prospective students to ask questions on Twitter, and we use our Twitter account to assist with our customer service efforts. We found that this has helped with our call centers and responding to simple questions within Twitter. And we based on the questions asked, we look to see if there's any gaps in communications. And so here is, examples of actual questions that are asked on Twitter. And now what we do is we look for reoccurring keywords and themes to figure out, how can we create content that directly addresses some of these reoccurring keywords and themes that come up. Now, we use this data, again, to create that content, and we found that there was really lack of information about dorm life on campus. And so we decided to create somewhat innovative content. We essentially created a YouTube series titled USC Cribs, which essentially is a spoof of MTV Cribs, excuse me, USC Dorms, which is essentially a spoof of MTV Cribs. But essentially, we profiled the freshman housing options on USC. We pretty much created a 2 to 3 minute style video profiling the distinctiveness of student dorm rooms. And it was interesting because this series was created based on using this data that we're getting, all the questions that are being asked, and then finding the keywords and themes, and then creating content to address those directly. And so here's an example of that content. What? Come on. What? Woo! What? Come on. What? Take it on down.
This is Parkside Arts and Humanities dorms. This is our friendly staff here at Parkside. Hey, what's up? And this is where we check in, just like CSI. Let's go upstairs. Friday night, midnight, Atlantic City, slash machines, ling, 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 when they ring off, lock the doors, that's when goes. These are my roommates. Hey, there's me. Alright, welcome to our common room. We just celebrated Halloween, so we have a little decoration going on. Here's our table. We even have a piano. My roommate, he's a jazz major. Let me take you into my room.
Let me slip into something a little more comfortable. One sec. That's better. Come on in, let me show you around. La 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 la. Yo. Well, this is my room. I got my chair here. This chair I brought all the way from my home state of Ohio. We got, of course, my fridge, which came with the room. Lots of Arizona iced tea in there. Oh yeah. And then I got all my posters, my Christmas lights, all my reading, of course my handy dandy record player, couldn't leave home without it, and of course, I'm a member of the USC men's crew team. Our first race is on Sunday, and we're gonna kill UCLA. Woo, fight on! And these are all my friends back home. I miss them a lot, but I've made tons of new friends here at USC. It's been great showing you guys around, but I gotta get back to my homework. Come on. Get out of here. All right, see you guys.
And I mentioned earlier I do wear several different hats, and now I'll put on my consultant hat. So I want you to meet Vera, and she is president of a multi-million-dollar sales organization that really has a brand perception problem. And so I'm going to show you how we've used content marketing to build and improve their digital brand identity, visibility, and credibility. And full disclosure here, this is a client of Digital Delane LLC, and which is the owner of Digital Branding Institute. Now, the goal here were to engage people, develop a cornerstone content through what we've learned about them, and then hone in on their brand voice and story. And so the mission for this piece is really to be authentic, be transparent, and then we wanted to create content worth talking about. And so we felt as though we should open up pull back the curtain and really reveal what the president of this organization is about. And the most difficult thing about this particular project was allowing us to come in with a camera crew, at the beginning of the day and film her honestly. And this is not polished at all. This really gives you a good insight on, what she does when she wakes up and goes about her business. So I think this is a great piece of content to check out.
This is my husband, Sean.
This is a better view of me.
Then this morning, yeah, lying in bed, yeah.
Or at least
Hi.
I think so.
You making salmon?
Yeah.
What a day, Quinn. What a day. Yeah. Okay, so, cheers. You gonna cheers, or do you need to? No, okay. Really, the pitch was this. I'm gonna move to California. I'm gonna go, make sure I get my career and my life like where I want it to be so I can take care of Steven and do all that. And my mother, this is what my mother said to me, no joke. She said, well, that will be great. She says, you should move there, leave Steven here, and you should come home once a month and you can visit him. I'm like, what?
It's like 1952.
Right?
How did he get that's 1952? I'm not sure what that is.
Right? And I'm like, no, Mom. I mean, that's not going to work for me. This is my child. She says, why?
Come back from the monastery.
Yeah, she's like, what? Why? Why? It'll be great. She says, you just go do what you have to do. Come visit him. We'll take care of him. No. But if you're that interested in coming to take care of him, why don't you move to California?
And they did.
And they did.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and they did. So I didn't worry about Steven. I didn't have that, is he okay? Is somebody taking care? I just didn't have that worry. My parents were here. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Look at that.
Oh, wow. That's massive.
Isn't that cool? So it's all above you. Like, there are friends.
Are these ruins?
Well, this is Pompeii.
Oh, okay. So it's not.
No, this is Pompeii. And then this is this winery we were in. And so you see all the vines up top. And this is his daughter. I can't remember her name. She was so sweet. And she's explaining about the winery. No, we just hanging out. That's my friend Julie, their black cat. And so these are all the...
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh my
So this is their kitchen. See, all you need is love and a bottle of wine. That was there.
Oh, so beautiful.
And these are all the wines they make.
So in this particular series, we started out with her, the beginning of her day, followed her throughout her day, all the way until she got home from work. So this wasn't a series that started out in the beginning. So she doesn't start out drinking a glass of wine in the morning. I definitely got to mention that. But what's so great about this piece of content is that it really helps to make the private public, and it really lives out the brand story. And so that's essentially what we wanted to convey for this client. Now, at the Digital Branding Institute, our focus is to help individuals and organizations enhance their digital identity, visibility, and credibility through digital branding resources, training, and education. But overall, we help organizations grow their business and individuals profit from their expertise. Now, we do this obviously through blog content. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We also have a podcast that I do. We have a series of infographics and checklists and ebooks and so on. We have a recent collaboration with Simply Measured on how to measure your digital brand impact as well. And all this stuff can be found on digitalbrandinginstitute.com through the various menu tabs. So that's the way that Digital Branding Institute obviously creates content to help to alleviate some of the challenges of their target audience. Now, when it comes to visibility, right? That was essentially the second tenet of digital branding. You know, I believe that a brand's visibility and exposure online has a direct link to the success of the business. And so when you think about visibility, you automatically, you know, figure that I'm talking about SEO or search engine optimization. And so to increase your online brand visibility, you want to make sure that your website or web pages and social media channels are all optimized with keywords and key phrases, right? So your your brand or your business or organization can be found. Make sure that you have, your meta tags and so on. And if you, I know I don't want to get over technical here, but it, to establish great visibility, you want to make sure that you have the keywords on your web pages, and you're using keywords within your social media, because people search obviously for things in social media, just like they would search for things through Google search as well. And so I'm sure you may have heard of link building, right, to increase visibility. And through link building, you're essentially looking for link backs from relevant websites or articles, so they can essentially link back to your website. And based on the number of links, based on who's linking back to you, each individual outlet has a particular weight based on how Google views the authority of that particular resource or outlet that's linking back to your website. And essentially that can lift your visibility as well if you have the authoritative resources linking back to your site. So say, for example, if someone from, let's say the government or the White House were to link back, if you want that, or to link back to your website, that would help to increase your visibility, because your authority would be increased as well in the eyes of search engines. And of course, when it comes to visibility, most of you guys are probably on Facebook, or you may have some business pages on Facebook as well. But as I mentioned earlier, with the recent change in the algorithm for Facebook, your visibility will be inhibited if you have promotional or salesy types of messages, because they want to limit, meaning Facebook, want to limit the amount of sales messages that are on a timeline. And it makes sense when you really understand social business. The more people are on the website, the more they're able to charge for advertising dollars. The longer the people are on the website, the more they're able to charge as well. So if you're going to your Facebook and you see your timeline, and you have a picture of your family and friends, things that went on throughout the week, maybe some cool memes, videos, things like that, and then you just see an irrelevant ad, it's if your timeline is flooded with a bunch of irrelevant and salesy types of ads, you're not going to spend as much time on the site. So, Facebook has essentially begun to change the way that brands market on their platform. And so they're essentially forcing their hand there by making them become more creative with the type of content that they put out. They make them, build a relationship with their following before sending out any type of salesy or promotional type of messaging. So it's all about, building those relationships within the content marketing, and having a brand voice that conveys that personality would ultimately help you extend your visibility, particularly within Facebook. And I also suggest that when you develop content, all of your content should be SEO friendly. Now, there's a good balance between, creating content that is easily consumed for your readers, and then creating content that is easily read and understood for Google. Now, you have to find that sweet spot in the middle, where you have your content with optimized keywords and things like that, but also reads really well, so that people can engage with the content, would want to share it, and so on. So you want to make sure that you're mapping your content with your SEO. So don't just create content, put it on the blog without doing the necessary things to make sure that it's found in search engines. And I suggest, if you were using WordPress, I suggest downloading Yoast SEO. It's a great tool. It's free, and it really allows you to enhance your blog or pages on WordPress when you use that tool. And so for me and for what we do at Digital Branding Institute is we want to make sure that we are mapping keywords to all of our content, which means that if we identify certain keywords that people are actually searching for, and then we try to create content against those keywords. So that's what I mean by mapping content with SEO, meaning instead of thinking about what do I want to write about today, right? You want to do some research, figure out what people are actually searching for, and the keywords that they're using in their search, and then create content on that, right? So that's what I mean by mapping your content with SEO. Now, the third tenet in digital branding is your credibility, right? And so, credibility is related to the quality of being obviously trusted by others. So if you're conceived as, credible, then others are going to respect your thoughts, they're going to respect your opinions, and give your products or service or whatever you're offering a try, right? But they more than likely would not do that if they do not perceive your product or service, or just your brand in general, as credible. And so there are a number of ways to increase credibility. Obviously, you can do things such as create thought leadership within your industry or occupation. You can participate in various events that let people know that you are obviously in the thick of things within the industry. If you're at the right events, if you're making sure that you are taking photos at those events, making sure that you are positioning yourself as a person that would know how to help alleviate some of the challenges that the target audience has. Of course, you can start a blog. You can do some guest blog posting, things like that. You can, have other people advocate for you online and create, testimonials as an example. Because ultimately, testimonials is really going to help you to establish your credibility, right? And trust and transparency are naturally critical drivers, of brand credibility. And, in order to increase that, you have to focus on, obviously creating consistent content, promoting the things that you're doing consistently, and then building a relationship with people who are engaging with you. And once you build that relationship, then you turn around and you ask them for a testimonial. Now, here's a good example for myself. Every time I consult with a client, I make sure that they give an honest testimonial of their experience with me. If there is, some project that I'm working on, and I want to make sure that I'm using my credibility to help gather additional resources for that project, or if I'm trying to get something new, and I'm trying to focus on building. Obviously, those testimonials would help, and I pretty much keep a treasure chest of testimonials to use in various situations, whether it be things with speaking, with DBI, consulting, and so on. So I highly suggest that you do the same. Anytime that you have someone that has good experience with you, and ask them for a testimonial. And some of you may be, a little timid with regard to asking, but I think you should start off at the very least by LinkedIn. They have an automated feature where you can ask anyone in your network to endorse you, or to give you a recommendation based on what you have on your profile. So I highly suggest at least starting off at that point, and then asking them to use their recommendation or their testimonial on your website, on print collateral, and any of your advertising pieces. Another thing you want to do is obviously reach out to influencers, right? You want to focus on people who are obviously well respected, so that they can endorse your brand. And with that in mind, you want to focus on building a list of influencers, and it could be people in the media, right? You know, people who obviously have a following. They may be known as a trusted source in their particular field. So have them cover you. And once that happens, essentially you're going to be able to increase your credibility, your awareness, and so on, based on the simple fact that that particular reporter or media influencer is referencing you in their work. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, asking for endorsements is critical. Utilizing LinkedIn to do that. Make sure that you're shouting everyone out. If anyone retweets some of your work, for example, make sure you tweet them back, thanking them for sharing. And if they respond, maybe they can, you know, comment on that particular blog post, or comment on you know, your authority, or the what you're doing in your industry, in your occupation, based on the type of content that they've been consuming from you. So these are all the good things that you can do for asking for written endorsements. You may want to pay attention to things such as like clout or number of followers, how well they actually engage with their audience, because ultimately that's going to help you. You should focus on doing this for everyone across the board, but obviously when you have a heavy hitter, someone with a large following, you want to make sure that you spend a little bit of time on building the relationship with them. And I'm sure that goes without saying. But essentially, the point I'm trying to make here is, you know, ask for as many endorsements and as many testimonials as possible, because that's going to help to build your credibility. All right. Now, I mentioned earlier that I would give you some tools to help build your content and make sure that you're being productive in the process. Canva, you know, you may have heard of Canva, but it's an easy to use drag and drop interface that really gives you access to graphics, to fonts, to these predefined templates that are pretty attractive. And you're able to use Canva to create social media images, some of your uh, social identity cover photos, things like that, through this website pretty easily. BuzzStream, it really helps you to identify sites where you can, you know, backlink to. Essentially, I talked about establishing your visibility through SEO and through backlinking and things like that. So you're able to look up sites in particular that'll help you identify what are similar sites in your industry or occupation that you may want to keep an eye out on. Build relationships with those either web developers or you know, the authors of those sites, the editors, and so on, so that you can increase your visibility by working with them as well. So you can use BuzzStream to help in that process. Animoto is essentially like I call it the Canva for video, and so you can essentially turn any of your photos or any video clips into professional videos or slideshows. If this, then that is a web service. Essentially automates a lot of your web functions. And it helps to really make your life easier. So, for example, if you want to have every, let's say, Instagram post also post on your Facebook page, you can set up an IFTT app or recipe, which once it was called, to automate that process for you. If you wanted to, you know, make sure if a particular influencer tweets something, it can email you as an example. So it's a great tool to automate some of your communications processes. And then Shutterstock. Obviously, Shutterstock is a great way if you're looking for licensed images to use from some of your advertising and so on. Shutterstock is a great way. They also have video as well as music. All right. Now, I'll leave you with this. I believe that digital branding is the oil in your sales machine. And when you think about it, um, you know, digital branding helps that sales process because again, if you have an attractive digital brand, it's going to make it easier for someone to do business with you, to you to get more customers, more clients, and more leads. And it also takes off the haggling, off the table when you're trying to close a deal because they're able to see your value right away. You don't have to sell as much when you have a very attractive digital brand. And now I know we're talking about content marketing here. So I would think that content marketing is essentially the additive in that oil. And I know you guys can at least relate to this analogy because everyone has to get their oil changed. So you have the synthetic oil, which is filled with different additives to make it last longer. And essentially, that's what I think content marketing is. Content marketing is the additive in the digital branding oil that really helps to drive your sales engine. And so that's what I want you to think about going forward. How are you going to be able to create content that helps build your digital brand so that you are able to get more customers, more clients, and more leads. And with that said, I'll leave it to any particular questions that you guys have. Go ahead and type that in the Q&A section there. Okay, so Josh, you mentioned you were taking notes, hoping to have this information in an online checklist form. Yes, there are a couple tools that you're able to use. I'm not sure if you have already, but we have the ultimate guide to building your digital brand. That's an incentive that you get for signing up on the Digital Branding Institute's newsletter. Also, you want to check out check out our resources page, and we're actively building our content arsenal, and we're going to roll out various resources as well. I will also be sending the slides to you guys as well, so you guys can take a look out for that, and hopefully that would help you in the process. We have another question from Christian. Let's see. Do you require to build good content marketing to gain credibility or personal brand and leverage that for digital branding, or can you do digital branding without content marketing and personal brand? So what the key difference is between digital branding and personal branding is that with personal branding, it's great for someone who is just trying to create a personal brand around a particular, maybe industry or occupation or something like that. But the difference is with digital brand, it's focused on conversion. And that's very important, right? I mean, it's like you can have a personal brand, but what exactly are you using it for? I mean, it's more or less of an indirect type of method in order to, maybe establish yourself or make yourself known for one particular thing. But how are you going to actually convert that? So, you don't necessarily have to consider advertising for your personal brand. You aren't really building out any funnels to take your audience or someone interested in you and actually using that brand to help convert them, right? There are many other different moving pieces that are involved in that process with your personal brand. And I actually have a couple of blog posts on this. You can go ahead and go on to the Digital Branding Institute website, search digital branding versus personal branding. I also have a podcast that really outlines this as well. So I invite you to check that out. So if we have any other questions, feel free to type it in the chat section. If not, then I don't want to make sure I'm going over time here. We have about 5 more minutes left. But if not, you can ask any questions via email, info@dbinst.com, and we can answer that for you now. Let's see. Was the person, Jeff, was the person showed with the wine personal branding or corporate branding? So here's the thing. If, for example, um, well, actually, I'll start by saying this. That actually was digital branding because of their unique situation. They wanted to do things to enhance their identity, and increase their visibility, and therefore increase their credibility as well. And there's different tactics that we use in order to do each of those three things. Now, the video I showed in this webinar focused on building that identity because we wanted to help create we wanted to create content that helped change the perception of some of their stakeholders, and we felt like that video helped to do that. And so I would say if it was it wouldn't be personal branding because it's really attaching that person to a particular brand, and she's not necessarily wanting to know. She's not necessarily wanting to position herself within the overall industry or the sales industry, but this is really for the internal stakeholders and some of the external stakeholders as well. And so this is where the conversion comes in. That was one piece of that puzzle that helps to convert our target audience. And so that's why I say this is not personal branding, but it's digital branding. Mia Gorman says, what's the difference between backlinks and link backs? Pretty much the same thing. I hope I didn't use those interchangeably, but they're pretty much the same thing. So again, when someone from an external site links to your site, that's what we call a link back. Christian, thanks for the answer. Clarified my doubts. Awesome. Mia, are backlinks and link backs the same? Yes, they're the same. Mia, they are the same. I'll spend about 1 more minute just in case you guys have any last-minute questions. While you guys are thinking, I'll end with this. We are planning to have these webinars twice a month. We want to make sure that we provide more value to you within your digital brand building process. And this was essentially a high-level overview of content marketing and sort of what I personally have done with content marketing in building our clients' brands and helping to build some of the students' brands for Digital Branding University and so on. And so going forward, we're going to have webinars that take even deeper dives into actually implementing certain things. And so I want to make sure that you guys look out for that. If you guys are on our mailing list, you guys will be sent that information. We plan to have these webinars every second and fourth Thursday, so you can check that out. One last question. So Mia says, how do you deal with misperceptions or fake news about your brand or industry? Well, that's a great question. So one thing that you're able to do with any fake news, or let's just say negative content, right? Usually negative content is found through search engines. So there are certain things that you're able to do to suppress that negative content, and you essentially want to push, create so much content that can be found on the first page to essentially push down that negative content further down the search engine results, which means that if there is one piece of negative content about your brand, you should create 10 pieces of positive content, and hoping that those 10 pieces bury that one piece. That's one option. And I actually talk about this at length in Digital Branding University, but just to also give you another point, you can also go about, asking either the developer or website owner, or even hosting service that houses this content to take down. And then also in Digital Branding University, I walk you through the legal parameters to actually get that forced down as well. So I believe it's much like credit repair, to be honest. You know, the same things that you would do, you know, to repair your credit would be the same things that you would do to address negative content that you can find online. All right, so that's about it. It's the end of the hour. Thank you guys so much for staying on until the end. As I mentioned earlier, you will receive some of the slides you'll receive the slides for this presentation. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email us at info@dbinst, and we'll be happy to respond. Well, I hope you all have the great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.